you think life is simpler as time evolves, for some, it can be more complicated when facing issues about health, estate plans, probate, long-term care, and more. That's why Attorney-CPA Joe Cordell hosts ElderTalk with TuckerAllen, providing intelligent answers for those thinking about their future. Here's Attorney-CPA Joe Cordell.
Welcome to another episode of ElderTalk. This week we're going to talk a little bit about housing. We routinely return to this topic because this is a pressing issue for the people who watch our podcast. We know that many of you are making decisions. Do you stay in the home? Do I move into a community environment? So we know that many of you are grappling with these questions. So we like to have on people who are authorities in this area, and as well as people who are involved in options that exist, developments that exist in the St. Louis metro area. So with that in mind, do you want to introduce our guest,
It
Jill?
would be my pleasure. We have with us Tyler Troutman. He's the Chief Operating Officer of St. Andrew's Resources for Senior Systems. And we're talking about this new development. It's coming to Eureka in August, right?
Yep. It should open in September.
Oh, in September.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're a little behind schedule.
Okay. And
Well, if you're just a little behind schedule, you're doing great.
yes,
That's right.
you are. And it's called Summerville of St. Andrews.
That's correct.
And give us a little background. This project is, what, a $23 million project?
It is. It's $23 million, 96 units. It's on the campus of St. Andrews at Francis Place, which was a standalone skilled nursing facility. But it's on 26 acres, and we had some space to design a new concept. And so we were looking to do something that was moderately priced, but maybe a little different than you've seen in the St. Louis market. So we're looking at an active adult community there that has little pocket neighborhoods.
So I understand it's being called an adult living community, not a senior living community, but you have to be at least 62 to live there. So why not call it a senior living community?
Well, there's really a difference between an active adult living community and a senior living community. The choice to move into an active adult community is lifestyle-driven rather than need-driven, as is typically seen in senior living.
Yeah, and, there are certain connotations when you think about senior living. I mean, it's not like it was 20 years ago, but you don't think of a very, to use your words, an active lifestyle.
Right.
And I know that's an important distinction. If people are functional, they're thinking, well, I don't want to go there yet. I don't want to have to resort to a place like that yet. Where exactly is this facility located?
It's in Eureka, Missouri, right off of Highway 109.
So it's right off of 109.
Correct.
Near Six Flags.
Yeah, very close to Six Flags.
So very close to the intersection of 109 and
near
44?
Near 44, yes.
Okay.
And isn't it adjacent, didn't you say, to St. Andrew's
I don't know where that is.
nursing home?
It is.
Okay.
But it's right near that intersection.
Right.
So I can see where that would be a very desirable area. It's interesting that most of the developments, to the extent there's any land available, it seems like have been closer in the past 10 years. Is that true, or are there developments that have been happening outside the central area?
This will be the first new one in that area in quite a while. But, we looked at the demographics. They looked really good, and that area is growing, as you mentioned. So we thought it was a great site, and we're really excited about it.
Well, would you regard this, are you going to market this as mid-tier or upper tier?
We were really trying to get moderate income.
Moderate.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with the construction costs the way they are and the cost of wood going up.
Cost of lumber, yes.
Yeah, we weren't able to keep it as low as we really wanted, but it's still very affordable.
So tell me how it works. Is yours a project where people just rent, or is yours a project where they actually make a purchase of a unit?
So it's mainly rental. We have several different options that are available where they can buy down their rent by giving us some money up front. So it starts at about a little over $3,100 a month and goes up from there to around mid-$4,000s a month.
So what can you get for $3,100?
So that would be the one-bedroom unit. So we have 3 different floor plans. We have a one-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom with an extra den.
Okay.
About how many square feet are we talking about on these?
Right around a little over 900, close to 1,000, depending on the floor plan.
And it's being called a pocket community or a pocket neighborhood, rather?
That's correct.
And that makes, 1,000 square feet. I get it that if you have a facility that has lots of amenities, and we'll talk about those, but if you get to a facility that has lots of amenities, why do you need a lot of square footage?
You don't.
And I noticed that that's something that some friends of ours struggle with who recently have moved to Florida. And they're in, I wouldn't call it senior living. I would call it living with lots of amenities and lots of options for additional services. Maybe that's the way I would say it. And their dilemma was, do they go with something that has like 1,800 square feet, or they could save a ton of money by going with space of half that. And my argument to them was that there are a lot of amenities. Do you intend to spend a lot of time in it? And the goal is to be active. Now, you can't always be active, but to the extent you can be active, then that becomes less important.
Exactly. So what kind of things can they do on the premises? What's available to them?
So we have walking paths. We have bocce ball, pickleball courts. So we have a lot of spaces that are designed for them to stay active. We're looking at a clubhouse, potentially having some exercise equipment. So there are just lots of choices for them to stay active. And, the hope is that we'll have most of the residents will be active and then they can engage in activities with their neighbors.
So are there workout facilities, though, like a gym?
There's not on campus, but there's some that are close by that we've been talking with folks about to see if we can utilize their facilities.
And you think that may be something you would add in a clubhouse at some point?
Yeah, we're definitely considering that. We don't have the final design on the eventual clubhouse right now. We're having one that's a little smaller than was in the original design, but that is a consideration down the road.
Now, how many of the units have you rented out so far?
So of the 96, we've had actually over 500 inquiries so far. Of the 96, we have 10 that are reserved. But many folks are waiting to see an actual unit, to step foot in and kind of touch and feel it. So
physically see it, sure.
Yeah, so that should be coming soon, probably in the next couple weeks. So I think that'll be a big boost to our sales.
Now, have you had any major challenges getting this project off the ground or just during the actual construction?
We did
especially with COVID.
Correct. Yeah, I think we did a really good job with planning this, and it's really gone very smoothly with the exception of removing some rock. We knew that we were going to have some issues there. It turned out to be a little bigger issue than we had hoped for, but we were through that phase of it. And really, like I mentioned earlier, other than the bad weather, we're almost on target. We're about 2 weeks behind from where we anticipated.
Did you all have any trepidation continuing with this project during the COVID? Because obviously you were building a year ago.
We were planning it during COVID. Construction was started about 3-4 months ago. So we were kind of on the tail end of COVID when the construction actually started. So
okay.
How is that? That seems awfully fast to me. So you started construction about 4 months ago?
Well, moving dirt and getting the site ready. So, but they're moving along very quickly.
And
wow.
they're finishing in September.
With the first year, the whole campus will not be built out in September, but the first 16 units will be ready.
So when will the rest be ready, are you anticipating?
So later in the year, probably around October or November.
Yeah. Probably dependent on the weather, too.
Right.
So do you find that most people want an ownership interest, or are most people simply looking for an opportunity to make a monthly payment? What do you find, speaking generally, about?
So we went to the monthly rental model. We do have some other communities around St. Louis that are entrance fee models where they pay an entrance fee and then have a monthly fee on top of that, and they have some money that comes back after they move out. But again, we were trying to find a product that was very moderately priced, and the one way to do that was with a rental type of model.
So this way, they can choose to not put a substantial sum up front, but they do have an option if they want to put a substantial sum up front to lower their payments significantly.
Correct. We have two options there. One is a payment of $30,000 up front, and the other is a payment of $50,000, and that buys your rent down pretty significantly.
But either way, you put up 30, or is there an option to put up nothing?
Yeah, there's an option to put up nothing, and it's a strict rental.
Okay.
So if you put up 30, then that means ownership?
No, it doesn't mean ownership. It just buys down your rent.
Just buys down your rent. Okay. Okay.
It's kind of a bet, right? Because if you pay that and say that you died in 5 years, I assume that's non-refundable.
Correct. We amortize it over a period of time, so we take 1% a month that would be non-refundable. But if someone, say, only stayed with us for a year, they would get a portion of that.
I see. Okay. So if they died within a reasonably short period of time, they would see some of their money back.
Correct.
I get it. That's good. So it's very complicated, the range of options that are out there now. And I want you to kind of have your hat on as sort of an expert on the industry. And not just looking at your facility, but at the facilities that you're aware of. Do you find that there's more of a trend toward people who are wanting to put in as little as possible and just pay monthly? Or is there still that mentality that World War II generation or baby boomers had, certainly, the kids of the World War II generation?
Yes.
They had this mentality, I think, that they wanted ownership of stuff. They wanted a deed or something. Maybe not a deed, but so I think that a lot of the models that I heard about in the industry over the last 20 years had some provision to purchase. So what do you see as a trend in the industry now?
We really see the trend moving towards rental, and one of the reasons for that, we know that the baby boomers haven't saved as well as prior generations, and they just don't have the money to buy and pay the additional rents that are associated with that.
Do people often enter into a contract, not just with you, but your familiarity with the industry? Do you think many people will find a place they want to move to, enter into a contract, then put their home up for sale? Or are the people that you think are commonly moving into a community environment making a commitment to selling their home first and then going out and searching?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag in that regard, but I think most have their homes for sale when they start looking. We've seen it all over the gamut on that. But I think the trend is going to be more towards having the home sold and moving into.
So, okay, yeah.
But the good news is, though, you wouldn't have to have your home sold if you're moving into a place where you can choose to pay monthly.
Correct.
Yeah, because then you could, for some reason, you find that it's not for you. You've got a place to go back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so do you find that the options that exist in the St. Louis metro area, is it dominated by a few major players? I know the Lutheran, what's that called? The
Lutheran Senior Services?
Yeah, Lutheran Senior Services are a heavyweight. I mean, apparently they own a number of facilities throughout the state. I imagine throughout the Midwest, sure.
Probably, sure.
So tell me, how do you perceive the industry? Are there a lot of players that are involved in trying to develop quality housing for older people?
When it comes to independent living, you're right. In the not-for-profit world, there are three big players, St. Andrews being one of them, but Bethesda Health Group and Lutheran that you mentioned. But when you talk about assisted living, we've seen lots of new facilities being built, and a lot of those are for-profit. Very nice, and I think they do a nice job. So in the assisted living side, I wouldn't say that they're it's concentrated to a few heavy hitters. There are a lot of, smaller organizations that have built communities around
you
here.
see those popping up all over pretty much.
Yeah.
Especially I've noticed that in the St. Louis area.
Uh-huh. I've seen a few, like in Town and Country at 141 in Clayton. Mm-hmm. There's a place that went up in the last 5 or 6 years. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it's I think it's a for-profit facility.
Yeah, I'd moved away from St. Louis to another city for about 5 years, and when I came back to the market, there were 15 new assisted living facilities in the area. So
15?
From the time
15,
you were
yes.
gone and you came back, wow.
So now there's a certain attraction to those that are they call them continuing care facilities. Where you come in and you progress. Maybe you come in and you're in fine shape, and you if you deteriorate over time, you stay within the community. And then, of course, there are others where they have a relationship for referral purposes or something with other facilities. What is your approach to that kind of process of aging?
So we have several St. Andrews has several campuses that offer that ability to move from different levels of care. So Brooking Park, for instance, which is across from St. Luke's Hospital, has the independent component, assisted living and skilled nursing. Now, it's not a life care contract like some other facilities where you pay a fee when you come in and you pay the same monthly rent. When we have folks that move from one level of care to the next, they do get a discount off of our normal, what I'd call a street rate, but they do pay for that higher level of care as they go along.
So the nursing home is adjacent to Somerville, correct?
Correct.
So if
St. Andrews at Francis Place.
If one of the tenants, say, declined, they could possibly just go there.
Correct. Or they could bring in, services into their apartment.
Right.
And stay there as long as they could remain as independent
depending
as possible.
on their condition.
Correct.
Right.
So there's a transitional stage where people don't have to simply leave what would be assisted or independent living and go to skilled care. They can, if you're located next to a facility, you can provide some things and they stay in their apartment. What are examples of that transitional care?
The staff at the nursing home and the skilled nursing facility cannot provide care in the independent living setting, but we can bring in private duty nursing, or if they need skilled home health services, those are available to be provided in their apartment.
So
That's a
you
nice
help
feature.
them navigate through that, the
Correct.
tenants at Summer, or what's soon to be Somerville.
Sure.
Okay.
In a way, I like the opportunity to be able to select. One thing about the continuing care model, when it's really rigid and fixed, is that you're making a really important decision. There's not much opportunity to pivot down the road or to decide, I want to go do a different plan.
Right.
You make a commitment to a lot of these models and you're there, meaning you come in as an independent living and then maybe you progress to assisted living and then at some point it's skilled care. But you're locked in to this location, this facility, and you've made often in those scenarios a big financial commitment. That used to be a common model. Maybe it's less common today. But I like the idea where you've not made a big commitment, but yet you have incentives. You have you have discounts available if you continue to stay within the system that you're in. Right. So it's the best of all worlds. If you decide that you want to move where your kids live in Kentucky, that's not harsh or punitive because you've not locked in.
Sure.
But on the other hand, you have incentives to stay within the same healthcare system because you get advantages.
Right.
I like that flexibility. Is that common in the industry? Do you see that more often now than being committed to a single
I think
campus?
that's always been available. I think, what you're referring to are what in the industry we call life care contracts where you're locked in. I think, with the proliferation of all these new assisted living facilities and, other independent living facilities that are being constructed, you do have more options.
So life care is the phrase that's used to describe a single campus in which you commit for continuing care through various stages.
Correct.
So would you, speaking to the people who are listening more generally, not just about your facility, but simply as a consultant of sorts, would you advise a family member of yours to avoid a situation in which it's a life care contract if they have alternatives? What would be your thoughts if it were your mother we're talking about?
It's a real personal preference. I think a lot of it depends on a person's financial situation. It really is about choice, and I think that's the nice thing with the way the market has moved. There are many choices for people to decide upon depending on what their personal circumstances are.
Tyler, would you say that these adult living communities or senior living communities, whatever you would like to call them, that maybe they're more attractive to, say, those who are widowed because they're lonely and they want to be around people, or is it kind of a mixed bag?
No, sure. Isolation's a big problem with our seniors, and I think it's great when if somebody's at home and isolated and they come into one of our facilities or any facility for that matter. The fact that they have some camaraderie with other residents and they can have meals with them, participate in activities, is just healthy.
So of the 10 units that you just rented for Somerville, are they mainly people that are widowed, or are you seeing couples?
We've had a few couples, and then there are also some folks that are single.
Give us some approximate statistics if you don't know exactly, that's okay. But what is it predominantly? Female, male, couples versus
unquestionably females, particularly in the skilled nursing and the assisted living side of things. But I'd say it's probably 70% female.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess women are more social, huh?
It's shocking. Well,
are they live longer?
They live longer. Guys
live
are gone. And for the guys watching this, it's amazing how exception free, almost exception free, that pattern is. You visit a facility where you have a lot of older people. It's stunning how few men there are.
Yeah.
Now, I do think a little bit of it is that I think it's overstated a little bit, because I was in a facility not too long ago in St. Louis area, and there were 18. We were doing a speaking event, and there were probably 20 people present, 18 of whom were women. So, and I talked to the manager of the facility, and he told me, he said, this is representative. And so I think definitely there's the longevity advantage that women have. But I think apart from that, I think it may be overstated or overrepresented, because you have some guys who probably chose not to be in those facilities. And so you probably have some of those who don't value that sort of communal environment as much as others. I'm just speculating. But 18 out of 20.
That's amazing.
Was stunning. So you say, how many people move in as couples?
Well, in independent living, we get quite a few couple. I mean, it's probably 50% couples. But over time, as they move through different levels of care, it changes.
Okay. Now, and you may have made this clear, so tell me again, is this independent and assisted living, Somerville, or is it?
No, it's just independent living. But it's on the campus of St. Andrews at Francis Place, which is a skilled nursing facility.
A skilled nursing, okay. And some people aren't familiar with those categories. I think what the law recognizes in the state of Missouri, and probably in most states, is really 3 categories of care. There may be 4, actually. And you probably know this as well, since it's a highly regulated industry. And it's regulated on the state as well as the federal level. But on the federal level, it's mainly skilled care that's regulated more than anything else. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
And that's often when you have the Medicaid payment involved, and sometimes Medicare payments are involved for rehab and whatnot. But on the state level, you have lots of regs whether something is classified as a independent living facility. It has a different name, an assisted living facility. And then you have 2 tiers, I think, of skilled care. But the point is there are a whole lot of rules associated with each of those categories. And so in your case, you guys, for Somerville, you have the independent and not even assisted. It's just independent.
Independent and then the skilled up the hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in terms of these 96 units, it's just independent. But you can still, as you pointed out a while ago, people can choose through private nursing or other things to have people come in to assist.
Correct. Yeah, as long as they're safe to live in the apartment, they have no problem bringing in additional help.
Now, can they have pets there?
Oh, sure. We always encourage pets. They're good for our health, and so we're lucky enough to have a park just down the street that has a nice dog park. But we're also,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
we're also, we have a lot of walking paths, and so it's great for dogs. But we also certainly encourage other indoor pets as well.
Now, is there some sort of fee attached?
No.
An extra fee? No.
Oh, actually, there is for dogs.
For dogs.
And,
okay.
and we're making a limit, and I forgot if we landed on 75 pounds or 100 pounds, but there will be a limit on the size of a dog that someone could bring
75 pounds is a big enough dog.
That's a very big
I've never
dog.
heard of a 100-pound limit. That's
Would that be a Great
we were
Dane,
thinking
maybe?
of like a retriever or, a black lab. So, when they get the full size, they're about 70, 75 pounds, or can be.
Yeah, well, they got to put them on a diet.
Well,
Keep them at that 75
I must say,
level.
I'm guilty of having chubby pets.
Well, yeah, my dog too. I'm tempted to. I can maintain my own diet. I can't maintain my dog's diet.
Well, when they look at you with those darling eyes, I mean, come on, you can't say no.
So, what is the definition for those who are wondering? How do you determine whether someone is no longer able to do independent living? Is it the ability to evacuate the facility independently?
Yeah, ambulation is certainly a big thing. If they're starting to have problems with transferring, like at night if they need to go to the toilet and they're falling and having multiple falls, that becomes an issue. Again, unless they bring in that private duty nursing to help keep them safe in their apartment.
So like activities of daily living, it sounds
Correct.
like you all look at.
Yeah.
So when you have how many other facilities in the area?
16.
16?
So we do everything from HUD, which is low income. It's subsidized by the federal government, to we have assisted living, skilled nursing, and then independent living.
16 facilities. Did you
Wow.
know that? And these are, some would be for lower income.
Correct.
And where are those located?
Mainly in the city of St. Louis, but we do have one in Illinois, over right across in East St. Louis. And we have one in Kirksville, but mainly in the St. Louis metropolitan area is where our facilities are located.
And then the medium income or mid-tier income, what facilities do you have there? Do you know off the top of your head? I'll be impressed.
Yeah, so Cape Albion is one that's more moderately. Cape Albion, it's at Doherty Ferry in Big Bend.
Okay, sure.
How long has that been around?
Almost 20 years. They recently affiliated with St. Andrews, so probably 6-7 years ago. So it's part of the United Church of Christ, and they've been a great partner of ours for a long time. And then we have St. Andrews of Bridgeton, which is an assisted living facility. That one would certainly be more moderately priced than, say, our Brooking Park, which is our highest end.
Is that off the Rock Road?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
I knew that sounded familiar.
So the Willows, is that part of Brooking Park?
It is. It's called the Willows at Brooking Park. So it's
I
on the
see.
Brooking Park campus.
Yeah, and that facility's been there for 20
Brooking
years?
Park was built in 1989.
Okay.
The Willows, I think we started the first phase there, and it opened in 2005, around 2004, 2005. And we've been expanding since then. We recently, when I say recently, a couple of years ago, opened the fourth phase, so we're up to 148 units there.
So contrast the options there with Somerville.
So the main difference is the entrance fee model. So at the Willows, people pay a pretty significant entrance fee that's refundable in some fashion. We have a contract, which is the most popular, where they would get 90% of their entrance fee, or the appreciated entrance fee, back. We hope it's appreciated, not depreciated. We haven't had that instance yet. Whereas as we were,
you likely, but
so as we were talking about before, at our new development at Summerville, you can go strict rental, where that's not even an option at the Willows.
So are people? They're not acquiring though equity at the Willows?
Well, the equity's been any appreciation that's occurred, and it's actually been very significant. I was the executive director there when we first opened the Willows, and I know the first residents who moved in have done very well.
And that's been hugely successful.
It has, yeah.
Yeah, I've been in that facility. It's a very nice facility.
And we're still running about 97% occupancy. So even during COVID, where we saw a pretty precipitous decline in census elsewhere, that stayed very strong.
Now, is this project, Somerville of St. Andrews, is this modeled after another community living?
That we did look at a development out in Oregon called Rose Villas, and the topography of the land is pretty similar. And they had the pocket neighborhood concept. So yeah, we did go out and look at that and met with their architect. So that was kind of an inspiration for the because of the lay of the land, really.
So when you say pocket neighborhood, what do you mean?
Yeah, so a pocket neighborhood is a living option, and we say it's at the intersection of design and social interaction. So it refers to clustered groups of homes. So each features it's a single level living area with a livable front porch And it has community space and shared gardens, so it's perfect for have like barbecues, for relaxing and entertaining family and friends. But there's shared amenities outside. So I talked earlier about the various,
Like
pickleball, and so it's a little cluster where you pretty much have 4 neighbors.
And there's an incentive to have relationships. And those relationships are more likely to develop, right?
Right.
In that sort of setting.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Huh. That's interesting. So 4 homes would form each sort of little pad or pod.
Yeah, so it's cascading down a hill. So, yeah, they're just little pockets. And not that you wouldn't get to know people in other pockets, but it really is a communal living space, like an outdoor living space.
So you had to find land, though, that was consistent with that model.
Well, we had the land on the Francis Place
so when you
campus.
went to Oregon, you knew.
So we knew, yeah. So Mary Alice Ryan, who's our CEO, had heard of the project out in Oregon, and it made sense.
And there's all kinds of development out in that area. I mean, it's not like it was years ago. So there's I can see so many of these seniors going on community outings, and not just to Six Flags, but there's things in the town of Eureka, a lot of fun activities there.
Right, and we're also partnering with some of the restaurants to bring in meals into the community at Somerville as well.
96 units. So I would expect that people would get to know pretty much everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
With a
you would
number
think
of that
it's like
size.
like a small town.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question.
Versus Willows. How many people are at Willows, or how many units?
So there are 148 there, but they all get to know one another.
Yeah. So you have a restaurant that is available there?
At the Willows? Yeah.
At Willows, I know. As a matter of fact, I've actually been there and seen the cuisine. It's very good, actually very good cuisine. What about at Somerville?
Yeah, there will be a dining room in the clubhouse.
Okay.
But the clubhouse hasn't been built yet.
Not yet. That's coming later after some of the units are opened and built.
Okay.
But you all are making a commitment, though, to build that clubhouse.
Yeah, so there'll be I hate to call it a temporary clubhouse, but we're utilizing one of the spaces for dining and activities until we're able to build the new clubhouse.
Okay. And you see that, after phase 2, or when do you see that coming?
Yeah, at the end. So we probably at the end of phase 3.
So it's the last thing you'll do.
Yeah.
And you see that happening approximately 2023, 2022?
That's probably about right, 2023.
So in the meantime, though, there'll still be like restaurant facilities, but it'll be in this temporary location.
Correct.
Now, will you have a program for outings?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Do y'all have a recreation director or something?
We will. We're actually in the process of hiring that person right now.
You've not volunteered for that role.
No, I haven't. I'm probably not in good enough shape for that.
I think that would be a fun job.
I think it definitely would be.
So you find then that a lot of people who move into communities such as yours, they want outdoor stuff. They want to do things outside, to be active.
Correct. Yep, and we encourage that because, again, the more active they are, the healthier they'll stay, and we hope to have them with us a very long time.
And, I often think of seniors going to these type of communities. It's almost like going back to high school and recapturing your youth.
Yeah, and we were actually hoping that maybe some friends might move in together. So not just married couples, but maybe friends who, were looking for a place to live and want to share the costs.
What is the name of the facility that's located on Clarkson? It's near 40 and Clarkson.
Maybe thinking of Friendship Village?
Friendship Village. That's what I'm thinking of. As an example of that phenomenon where people get to know each other and one moves there and then another and then another, we go to a church called West County Assembly of God. And it was a good-sized church at one time. It's smaller now. But these people have known each other and gone to church together since the 70s. This church was founded in the late 70s. So
wow.
It's on 40 and 141 near there.
Yeah.
So Yvonne and I have just watched with interest how these couples, it's kind of like there's an affiliation, which obviously there's not with the Assembly of God and Friendship Village. But that location, for some reason, it started where a couple of, I would say influencers, I'll use that word, two couples at the church who everyone knew and liked, they moved there. And once that happened, there's just this cascade of people who are moving there only because they know people there.
Word of mouth.
So it tells me that with your industry, that there's this phenomenon where people will know others who will know others who will know others, and they end up in a place where they have lots of friends who, by very intentionally, move to a place where they could all be. And you see that apparently.
Every day. Yeah, we experience that at the Willows as well as many of our other independent living facilities.
Yeah, the Willows is another place where we know several couples that in succession move there.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, why not move in where your friends live?
Yeah. People, birds of a feather flock together, as they say.
Yeah, it makes sense. So are you all affiliated with, you said you're not for profit.
Correct.
So are you affiliated with a religious denomination?
So we started as part of the Episcopal Presbyterian Foundation. So on our board, we do have representation from those two churches. And then, as I mentioned, with the affiliation with Cape Albion, we also have United Church of Christ.
So, but you're still, you are not for profit still.
Correct.
And you have a board that you report to. So when you have money that would be profit in the hands of other organizations, we might say, in the industry, this money, I assume, goes back into the facilities.
Yeah, so we always try to make sure our facilities are kept up to date and they're in good working order. So it does take a lot of capital to do that. If we do have any excess, it would go into investments, which again helps us fund operations if we have any deficits, or it also helps with maintaining the physical plant.
So like a project like this.
Exactly.
Of course.
And it gives us the ability to borrow money because we do have some assets to pledge.
Are you planning a big celebration for the grand opening?
We're not doing a normal big grand opening celebration.
No ribbon cutting?
Yeah, we've had a ribbon cutting, but we were worried with COVID about having a big group event, even though the guidance keeps changing on that. But we thought we're just going to keep it a little low-key at this point to keep the residents safe.
So let me ask you a question that I've seen discussed on financial shows, and I've read articles in Wall Street Journal, how there's this demographic change taking place, in that our population is aging, which in the short term or medium term, even the next 10 plus years, we'll see, I think, that curve increase of people who are retiring. But in the very foreseeable future, maybe 15 years out, that demographic experts say that we will see, because of the reduction in childbirths, et cetera, that there may be a change in the number of people that are retiring, or as a ratio of the people who are working. Do you all do projections where you estimate what is the industry going to be like 20 plus years down the road? And the supply and demand, do you see that potentially there will be an oversupply of facilities in 10 or 15 years, or do you think there may still be a shortage?
Well, right now we actually we're overbuilt in the St. Louis market in particular. It's hard to say, because I think with COVID, as it just happened, I think people are going to reconsider whether they stay at home using telemedicine or other technologies that come out. So, we try to predict that, but I think trying to predict anything beyond five years at this point, or even 3 years, is very difficult, because I think people's preferences are changing, and I think we're in good shape in St. Louis because we're so overbuilt right now. I think we won't have a shortage in this market.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking about a surplus. So it's interesting, though, that you all chose to go forward with this project, even though I assume when you made this decision, certainly when you actually started building, you knew that there was this surplus. So you all are betting on trends being more favorable in the future?
Well, when I was talking about the surplus, I was alluding to more of the assisted living and skilled nursing. Now, affordable independent living is something I think that we will see some growth, and that's the reason we went forward with this project.
I see.
The demographics really made sense. Of course, we did market studies, and that's required of our bondholders. But I think that market's going to be really good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question.
No,
I was kind of
no.
alluding to the other levels of care.
No, it is a discussion that you have to break into pieces because there are these three categories, and while assisted living and skilled care probably travel together, independent living doesn't have to travel with those two. And I would think that with the market being overbuilt, it would make it tougher to compete in those areas. But I definitely see the market for a low-cost alternative to continuing to purchase real estate as you get older and allowing people to be in a community environment.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we moved forward with this project, because the demographics make sense. And, a lot of the communities are the independent living communities we see are more expensive. So, again, we were trying to find something that's moderately priced.
More affordable. Sure.
So,
yeah, in a good location.
Right.
I think probably that location has also benefited from the chaos that we've seen in urban areas in the last year. I mean, a lot of people are uncomfortable being in cities where if you had asked them a year and a half ago, before March of 2020 or so, they might have felt okay living in cities. But all of that has radically changed. Yeah. So that it was fortunate that you guys chose to build where you did this facility.
Yeah, and it's close enough if somebody wants to go into the city. It's not a long drive, or if they want to go to Kirkwood, it's very convenient right off of the interstate.
Or Wildwood, for that matter. Sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's right next door.
And it has great views. It's, like I said, it's cascading down a hill, and the views are really stunning. So, you get that more of a country feel, but you're still close enough to the city and to other little towns where you can do your shopping and, get out there if you want to.
And you're close to Lone Elk Park, one of my
Correct.
favorite attractions
very
in the
close.
St. Louis area. Lone Elk Park, have you been there? Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, it's right off 44 Valley Park, and they have elk and deer running all around the park. It's pretty cool.
It's very close.
Well, you should, now you've got to have a shuttle bus to Six Flags, you think?
Yeah.
It's got a senior discount at Six Flags.
Yeah.
Time has flown. We're over 45 minutes. Yep. So I want to ask another question. I'm kind of circling back because I think you got interrupted a while ago. But I'd like for people to be able to walk away with what your suggestions might be of a sort of quick list of things they should think about as they make a decision to sell their home and move into a probably independent living to start. But thinking, things could, digress from there or
this is a huge step.
Yeah, they could go downhill from there, put it that way. And then what things you would suggest. And, of course, we know that you have marvelous products with your industry. Let's be sure and post that information. So tell us, what would be that list you would recommend to your favorite aunt of things that you think that she should consider?
So in starting at the independent living side, I think, looking at the amenities and what kind of activities are being offered and making sure there's a good match there. But, as you move up in the different levels of care, there's certain things you should look at. I think, do the smell test. If you go into a skilled nursing facility and it doesn't smell really good, that means probably that the housekeeping isn't good. Not that there won't be episodic issues.
That's a good...
But if it's consistent, you're right. You're absolutely right about that.
They shouldn't ignore telltale things like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But also looking at things, and again, this is related to skilled nursing, the star rating from CMS if they participate in Medicare. Just walk down the hallway. If the employees are engaging, do they say hello? Do they acknowledge your presence? I think that's very important because it gives you a sense of what... the culture there and how they treat their, because we're really in the customer service business. It's not just healthcare,
right.
And I think it's very important that maybe stop and talk to some staff and ask them how they feel about their job and what do they think about the residents. I think that's always a good thing to do.
And this might apply to assisted living too.
Sure.
Yeah, or even independent living in some cases. So Those are great points. Anything else that you would suggest people look at? I mean, obviously the price, but
Yeah, I was going to say, just make sure it's the right price for your income level.
And if they, want to be close to family members, if the facility is within,
Right.
That's
That's
a
always
half an hour's drive or so.
Sure, and that's always a consideration. We see many families move mom and dad in from other areas of the country just to be close by. But another thing is just, do they have additional levels of care? Some people care about that, others don't. But if you want to make sure that you have additional health care options on the same campus, you need to choose a place like Somerville that has the skilled nursing piece, or Brooking Park that has assisted living and skilled nursing.
And also something that we did talk about is people should ask that if they decide to shift directions for some reason, and you never know. I mean, stuff happens. Suddenly, one month mom is living independently and doing fine, or even in assisted living, and then suddenly something happens, maybe in the family more than her physically, but she ends up going to live with a family member in another state. If that happens, I guess you'd want to believe that there's an exit strategy that wouldn't be too punitive in the contract,
right,
such as what you described, where you don't forfeit a fee that you've paid in front, if depending on what point you decide to get out.
Right. There are just so many options, and it really gets down to personal preference and what makes sense for the individual.
Yeah. But it's very difficult to make decisions that there's no room to change direction. And that was always a little scary to me in talking to clients when this would come up years ago when I was practicing and doing some types of estate planning, and still do some actually. But for someone to be entering into a deal with a particular facility that that it's going to be very difficult for them to reverse course. So it puts so much pressure on the front end to get everything right, to make the right decision about the location and the cost and the particular physical arrangements of the facility. You're making all those decisions, and in order to back out of those deals, these were the old contracts where you went in, you paid a big sum up front. There are always circumstances where you get back some, but as a practical matter, those conditions made it difficult and a little unlikely that much of it would be recovered. Kind of like when you join country clubs and you pay the initiation fee of $100,000 or $150,000, whatever it is, and they tell you, when you leave, you can get a refund of some portion of your deposit, if you want to call it that. The reality is, I know a lot of people who've been in a lot of clubs, or several people at least, and including my own experience, is that you never see that money again. Because it can be that there are people waiting on it to come back, so you're in line to get a refund eventually, if that time ever comes. And then in Florida, people found out that the money is not in a reserve account. Instead, the money, this is a big source of litigation in Florida, South Florida, was people had put up $150,000 apiece for these country clubs, and there are millions. And the developer was not under an obligation to escrow that money. And these people assume that and you would assume that, right?
Of course.
So these people, 2008 comes, and these people who otherwise were flushing cash, all of a sudden they're needing money. And where's the first place you're going to go? Among the first place you're going to go is your golf course. I mean, that's the most expendable thing.
Right.
And they kind of lined up the teller's window, so to speak, and it's like a run on a bank. They had enough to give the first 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people their refund, but then the line started forming, and clearly this developer had taken this money, and he wasn't dishonest. I mean, it was lawful. He had taken the money and gone and done other developments, which he expected to be profitable, but they weren't because it's 2008.
2008, yeah.
Yeah, so he had lost all that money. So he had to just say to these lines of people, I'm sorry, but your money's gone. So there was this class litigation, et cetera. But I saw a little bit of, or I anticipated that becoming an issue with some of the practices in the skilled care especially, but sometimes continuing care communities more around the turn into the 21st century. So I'm thinking more around the year 2000. I think it's really improved. Like what you described sounds very safe and refreshing.
Yeah, there are a lot fewer of those life care facilities or contracts now than there were, like you're saying, back in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. It was a bit of a Wild West then because the industry was still emerging. And the idea of a continuing care community where you have all levels of care being available on the same campus, that was new. And
it's like they were finding their way.
They were finding their way, and you always have some questionable players early on. And plus they weren't sure how to do those actuarial calculations. So when they're charging a flat fee that's based on estimated lifespan, if you get it wrong, depending on if you get it wrong,
mistake.
if they outlive your expectation, then you have a financial problem. If they die sooner, then it's a windfall. So I remember those days in the industry, and it's so nice to see the changes that have taken place in the last 10 plus years, 15 years.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there are always people who are honest in the industry. There always were. But it was just difficult to figure out how to price some of the care. I think also about the analogy of people who were buying insurance for long-term care. It was the same problem. If you think about it, it was exactly the same problem in terms of the math. And that's that these insurers, Genworth, I think, got a huge beating. And I think they may be the only one left standing in the industry that still sells long-term care, and even they are reeling on their heels. And except for GE coming in and putting in billion plus, I don't know exact number, but a huge sum of money, they would have gone under. So now all those insurers that were selling long-term care, pretty much all of them are wiped out of the industry. And the reason was they were trying to do what the long-term care facilities were doing, trying to figure out how do we price this if we're going to charge a large fee on the front end. If they had done it the way you guys are doing it now, then you're flexible in terms of some change.
Yeah, right.
But they didn't have room for error. And so the insurance companies who were trying to do their best, they weren't dishonest, but they charged fees that they couldn't possibly have foreseen the cost of long-term care. They couldn't have seen it being so expensive. Thankfully, many of the skilled care facilities now, I guess they're not seeing a lot of insurance coverage, but they are seeing some Medicare and even some Medicaid.
That's correct, yeah.
Do you have Medicaid beds in your facilities?
We do, not in all of them, but we do in many of our skilled nursing facilities. The problem there is the reimbursement is so poor that, I think the average rate right now is a little over $135 a day, and that's to take care of somebody. You can't get a hotel room for that.
Right.
At a lot of places. So
that is crazy.
The reimbursement's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, there's going to have to be payment reform moving into the future for our industry to survive, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and they do those calculations based on the average expense of a nursing home in the state of Missouri. But if that includes rural Missouri, I mean, the cost between that and the cost in St. Louis area would be maybe a 50% variance. So, yeah, you're right. What Medicaid pays is far short of actual cost.
Yeah, that's really just the safety net. But, it's certainly not paying the bills for many of the nursing homes.
Right.
That's why we have, you have to try to have a mix of private pay people to help
kind of
offset some of that.
Yeah. So what is the cost of long-term care that you're seeing commonly in Missouri, in St. Louis area? You could give me your numbers or what you know to be the standard in the St. Louis area.
It ranged from assisted living, it's probably...
skilled care.
For skilled care, it could be around $10,000 a month.
I would think it would have to be. It's like $16,000 in the Northeast.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And going up. But I know that there are facilities in St. Louis that are $12,000. So
I was just trying to come up with an average, but that's many of them are more expensive than that even.
Yeah. So it is a challenge to work and provide services and housing in this industry. You have to pay your costs and deal with a lot of regulation. It's a tough field.
It certainly is.
Yeah, and then with, we have new minimum wage requirements that are affecting that as well. So our reimbursement's not getting any better, but our cost structure is going way up.
Yeah. Well, still. So we'll wrap up. Those of you who can look into any of the St. Andrews facilities, they sound marvelous, but especially we want to call your attention today to Somerville. You have models they can go through and see, or
coming soon. So
in August?
Yes, we should, by August, we should have one. We're doing an open house this week that we're allowed to go in for just a couple of days, but I think we should have a model done real soon.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Marvelous.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great guest. Time flies, as it often does. That's another episode of Elder Talk. Till next time, take care.
You've been listening to Elder Talk with TuckerAllen, providing intelligent answers for those thinking about their future, with Attorney-CPA Joe Cordell. Sponsored by TuckerAllen, your estate and elder law advisors. For more information, visit TuckerAllen.com. Listen again next Saturday for another edition of Elder Talk with TuckerAllen. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.